Hi there and thanks for tuning in. Today we'll see a time-lapse of me painting this pool scene. And actually my inspiration came from the lovely weather outside here in the Netherlands, where it hits about 30 degrees. And that made me start some prompts in Microsoft Copilot, where you can actually generate pictures based on text input. So I did some research, I looked at online pictures, but I also generated some prompts. And I wanted a top-down view of somebody relaxing in a pool, I wanted some shadow work on there, and I wanted a vibrant pink rubber band in which a person was relaxing. So I made a couple of prompts and kept tweaking them until I had a few which inspired me, and then out of those few I combined this image. So it's not a static image I used, no, I mixed and matched the parts which I was interested in to come to this composition. With a pool there are lots of blues involved, and the main colors on my palette for this one are ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, primary cyan, white, yellow ochre, and also carmine red. I'm finding my way a bit with how to make this movement in the water. So here you see me going about with a rubber brush to scratch out some paint. But it wasn't really the effect I was going for, so I went over it again with a smaller brush and smoothing it out here and there, but also adding more variations in blues in both the shadow areas as well as in the well-lit areas. For the shadow areas on the water, I used a mixture of ultramarine blue with carmine red and a touch of white. This gives a nice deep color to it, kind of towards the purplish side of the spectrum. Whenever I want it darker, I just add some more to the purple mixture and go over it again and again. And again, there's quite some paint on this little panel, I must admit, where often I paint with very thin layers. Here's quite thick and smooth, and I think it achieves a nice effect for the water, to be honest. It's time to start on the rubber band, and here I start with the shadows, which are mainly carmine red with a touch of ultramarine blue. So again, the same mixture as you see in the shadows, but then more towards the red side. And then for this rubber band, we have these lush pinks, but also dark reds. So it's nice to play around with those colors and to make several mixtures before you start painting it. And then you can just mix and match wherever you feel it fits best. I really like this pink rubber band because it's really an eye catcher and it matches very well with the blue as well, I must admit. The figure itself, it's rather small and very simple. I also put a sun hat on there to avoid myself from getting lost in any details I might see in the face or anything like that. So I want to keep it simple. I want to keep the picture convincing, summery, but I don't want to get lost in details. So these are little tricks you can use. Hide something behind something else. For example, in this case, the sun hat. Besides hiding, it also really brings out the feeling of a hot summer day in a pool. Here inside that, let's call it a donut, we see a very dark shadow area. And I think it's very nice because also the inside of that donut kind of matches the same value as of that shadow. So you got a bit more of the colors leaning towards each other as well. Now here I had to change the camera angle a bit, so I do apologize for that big nose coming in the screen all the time. But I had to change my position to get into a bit more details because the camera was simply blocking the view. Here I am refining the figure a bit, and I use quite dark shadows and a bit of a tanned skin tone. Nice match with the sunshine, of course. The pink can be more prominent, so I'm adding more of my carmine red. But please, if you have alizarin crimson, I bet it would do the trick just as good as carmine red. It's a similar, beautiful color. Here I'm softening out the edges a bit because it's a smooth surface, so there's no hard edges in there. We want to make it a bit soft. Just gently rub over it again. Now, this rubber donut is of course very reflective of the sunlight, so I'm adding a pure white here, but then I'm slightly spreading it out so it blends a bit with the underlaying colors. Later on, I will add another touch of white on there for that really shiny effect. But first we're focusing on the light waves in the water and how the light bursts in the reflective surface of that water. So I'm just taking a very light mixture, basically a titanium white, plus a slight touch of blue, and mixing it in the still wet paint. Just dragging little lines quite organically and playing around with that. And then I'm taking a slightly darker shade of blue to add some notes here and there to emphasize the fact that it's an organic shape and wave and you don't have a boring feel. Now the most highlights are there. I feel the shadows are not dark enough yet. So I made a glazing effect here by adding some oil to ultramarine blue and again my carmine red to make a very dark tone of these two transparent pigments and then going over the already there colors and darkening those shadows. And you already see that it pops way more than it did before. And I'm just gently brushing it on there and having fun while doing so. And then for the final touches, I add some highlights with my palette knife, just a little bit here and there to indicate the shine on the waves itself. Some final touches on the figure. And then we're almost done with this lovely, sunny atmosphere. Here I'm just making some of those waves also appear in the shadow areas. This time not with white, but with more blue in there. And finally, we sign it. And I do so by simply scratching out the paint with a toothpick. And it's a lot easier than signing with wet paint. Thank you very much for watching. Should you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in a comment below. Be happy to answer them.